Shri Vrindavan Dham ki,
Jai.
Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki,
Jai.
Jagannath Puri Dham ki,
Jai.
Ganga Mai ki,
Jai.
Yamuna Mai ki,
Jai.
Bhakti Devi ki,
Jai.
Tulsi Devi ki,
Jai.
Shri Hari Nam Sankirtan ki,
Jai.
Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki,
Jai.
Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki,
Jai.
Itai Gaur Premanande.
Hari
Hari
Bol.
Bol.
All glories the assembled devotees.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
All glories the assembled devotees.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Glories the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories, all glories, all glories. The lotus feet of Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga.
Hare Bol.
Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swamini Tinamane Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Ashadatmane Shri Guru Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Iti Namane Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachapane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatcha Deshatarene. Okay. Let's see here. Let me just sharing my screen. Can everyone see it?
Yeah.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, great. All right. Okay, so Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om
Om
Namo
Namo
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om
Om
Namo
Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udira Nasta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtuki. Before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, we should first offer our respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, unto the supermost human being, Narayan Rishi, unto the goddess of learning, Mother Saraswati, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart becomes almost completely destroyed, and devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes established within one's heart as an irrevocable fact. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, text number 36. Etavar eva jignasam tatva jignasun atmana anvaya vyatirkabayam yatshat sarvatra sarvada. Etavar eva jignasham tatva jignasan atmana anvaya vyatir ekabayam yatshat sarvatra sarvada. Etavareva jignasham tatva jignasunatmana anvaya vyatirakabhyam yatshat sarvatra sarvada. Please chant.
एतावाद् एव जिज्ञास्यं तत्त्वजिज्ञासुनात्मनः अन्वयाव्यतिरेकाभ्यां यत्स्यात् सर्वत्र सर्वधा.
एतावाद् एव जिज्ञास्यं तत्त्वजिज्ञासुनात्मनः अन्वय व्यतिरेकाभ्यं यच्छत् सर्वत्र सर्वदा. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Oh, you can go ahead.
No, Shuman Mataji, please go ahead.
So, thank you. एतावदेव जिज्ञास्यां तत्त्वा जिज्ञासुनात्मनः अन्वयाव्यातिरेकाभ्यां यत्स्यात् सर्वत्र सर्वदा. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
जिज्ञासं तत्त्वा जिज्ञासुनात्मनः अन्वयाव्यतिरेके खव्यां यत् सर्वत्र सर्वदा.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go to the synonyms. Etadvat, up to this. Eva, certainly. Jignasham is to be inquired. Tattva, the absolute truth. Jignasunya, by the student. Atmanaha, of the self. The big capital S. Anvaya, directly. Vyatir ekabyam, indirectly. Yat, whatever. Shat, it may be. Sarvatra, in all space and time. Sarvada, in all circumstances. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. A person who is searching after the Supreme Absolute Truth, the personality of Godhead, must certainly search for it up to this, in all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly. Now, I'm going to pause here before we go into the purport. The purport is very extensive. In the book itself, I think it's 6 pages long. We'll do our best to get through it today. We'll do mostly reading, and we can take any questions or comments at the end of each paragraph. Please feel free to just jump in and say I have a question or I have a comment. If I see something, I will do it just to break up the reading. Reading for 6 pages straight is hard in this format. But before we get into the purport, I just wanted to recap very briefly and read the previous 3 shlokas. If everybody can make sure they're on mute, that would be helpful. Thank you. So the last 3 verses, and these are called the Chatur Shloki, or the 4 seed verses of the entire text of Srimad Bhagavatam, which basically from the seed, everything else sprouts and manifests. This is the Lord Krishna speaking directly to Brahmaji. Text 33. Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before creation, when there was nothing but myself, nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead. And after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. Text 34. O Brahma, whatever appears to be of value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. No, it is my illusory energy, the reflection which appears to be in darkness. Text 35. O Brahma, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos, and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I, myself, also exist within everything created, and at the same time, I am outside of everything. So these first 3 verses, Krishna establishes himself as the source of everything. He existed before, is the means of creation, and he's going to exist after. So he existed before, he's the cause, and after the annihilation, it is he who will remain. And then he gives it, when it comes to this understanding, that he also understands that everything that exists, because he's the creator and the cause of creation of everything, everything has its connection to him. And anytime we see something that is disconnected from Krishna, that is illusion. And then text 35, it talks about how we should see Krishna in everything. And this vision of seeing Krishna everywhere, everything has a connection to Krishna, everything that we see. One who sees me everywhere and sees everything within me, I am never lost to him, he is never lost to me. This brings us to the point of the vision of a devotee. And our acharyas explain that this is the platform of pure bhakti, being able to see Krishna at every moment, at every place. And this final verse today, text 36, explains how we can attain this vision. First two verses are the relationship, the sambandha. Text 35 is the prayojana, or the goal, or the bhava, what one achieves, the lifestyle, the mentality, the vision of a person in the perfected state, seeing that Krishna is everywhere and therefore they are never lost to Krishna. Krishna is never lost to them. They are never alone. They are always united intimately with Krishna. So this text 36 explains how that connection from knowledge to experience happens. And that is called abhideya, or the practice. A person who is searching after the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, must certainly search for it up to this in all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly. So that is, this search should consume our life, where we are always seeking spiritual understanding and wisdom, opportunities to get closer and better understand the supreme absolute truth. Now, these verses, in themselves, sometimes can seem abstract, a little bit ambiguous. Search for it up to this, in all circumstances, all times and place. The details are not abundant, but it's in the seed form, very compressed. And we see that the Srimad Bhagavatam as a whole text, and then the commentaries on them by our acharyas, and thank God we have Srila Prabhupada, who has given us purports for our limited understanding, so that we can understand the meaning of such text. They begin to expand and expand and expand out of compassion, so that we can come to the point of offering devotional service to the Lord. Okay, so we'll begin reading. And again, this will consume most of our time, if not all of it. And I'll ask, I know some people are either traveling or not able to read on the screen, but if you are, at some point we can switch over because the reading is extensive. To unfold the mystery of Bhakti Yoga, it is explained in the previous verse. It is the ultimate stage of all inquiries, or the highest objective for the inquisitive. Everyone is searching after self-realization in different ways, by karma yoga, by jnana yoga, by dhyana yoga, by raja yoga, and by bhakti yoga, etc. To engage in self-realization is the responsibility of every living entity developed in consciousness. One who is developed in consciousness certainly makes inquiries into the mystery of the self, of the cosmic situation, and of the problems of life in all spheres and fields: social, political, economic, cultural, religious, moral, etc., and in different branches. But here the goal of such inquiries is explained. Let's just pause here for a second. To engage in self-realization is the responsibility of every living entity developed in consciousness. And to engage in self-realization means to make inquiries about the mystery of the self, the cosmic situation, and of the problems of life. Real quick, we only have 5 people here. What are some of the questions that naturally come up in these categories? About the self, the cosmic situation, or about the problems of life? Let's just to make sure we're all engaged in thinking here. If you want to just say one of them, what are some of the inquiries that people ask?
One come to mind, why I'm suffering. Maybe that.
Yeah. Why am I suffering? That's a very natural question what people ask. Who is God? Is he attainable? Can I have a relationship with him? What is the purpose of life? How did this material world get created? How does this world get created? Does life exist after death?
Prabhu, first, who am I to know myself?
Yes. Very important question. Where do I go after death? And so all these are really important questions in life. And without them, we either remain in ignorance and oblivious to life. We basically, what they say, sweep it under the rug.
One question comes into my mind is, why am I here?
Very important question.
Thank you.
Without an answer to that question, it's hard to live unless you just live in denial.
And Prabhu, sometimes there is confusion because many people they're telling that no, it's only one life. We don't have any life after that, and we don't come back. But we believe that we come back, and depending on the previous births, we are getting all these sufferings or misery or everything. But sometimes, honestly, I am little bit confused about that.
It's very confusing, and we take it based on a certain, we may have been, teachings that we've been passed down or reading in the scriptures. But we have to have answers to these questions. And not just philosophically. It may start philosophically, but it has to be realized through a relationship with Krishna through the scriptures. So the last sentence in this purport says, but here the goal of all such inquiries is explained. So the Srimad Bhagavatam explains all these inquiries and what the goal of such inquiries are. And the goal is that is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything emanates, everything rests, and everything ultimately is traceable back to Lord Sri Krishna. Okay, let's continue to read. The Vedanta Sutra philosophy begins with the inquiry about life. And the Bhagavatam answers such inquiries up to this point, or the mystery of all inquiries. Lord Brahma wanted to be perfectly educated by the personality of Godhead. And here's the answer by the Lord, finished in the 4 nutshell verses, from Aham Eva to this verse, Etavad Eva. This is the end of all self-realization processes. Men do not know that the ultimate goal of life is Vishnu, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, due to being bewildered by the glaring reflection in the darkness. And as such, everyone is entering into the darkest region of material existence, driven by the uncontrolled senses. The whole material existence has sprung up because of sense gratification, desires based principally on the sex desire. And the result is that in spite of all advancement of knowledge, the final goal of all activities of the living entities is sense gratification. But here is the real goal of life, and everyone should know it by inquiries put before a bona fide spiritual master, expert in the science of bhakti yoga, or from a living personality of Bhagavatam life. Everyone is engaged in various kinds of scriptural inquiries, but the Srimad Bhagavatam gives answers to all of the various students of self-realization. This ultimate objective of life is not to be searched out without great labor or perseverance. One who is imbued with such sincere inquiries must ask a bona fide spiritual master in disciplic succession from Brahmaji, and that is the direction given here. Because the mystery was disclosed before Brahmaji by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the mystery of all such inquiries regarding self-realization must put before such a spiritual master, who is directly the representative of the Lord. Acknowledged in the disciplic succession, such a bona fide spiritual master is able to clear up the whole thing by evidence from the revealed scriptures, both direct and indirect. Although everyone is free to consult the revealed scriptures in this connection, one still requires the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, and that is the direction in this verse. The bona fide spiritual master is the most confidential representative of the Lord, and one must receive direction from the spiritual master in the same spirit that Brahmaji received it from the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. The bona fide spiritual master, in the bona fide chain of disciplic succession, never claims to be the Lord himself. Although such a spiritual master is greater than the Lord in the sense that he can deliver the Lord by his personally realized experience. The Lord is not to be found simply by education or by good, fertile brain, but surely he can be found by the sincere student through the transparent medium of the bona fide spiritual master. This is a very important paragraph of the purport, explaining the necessity of having a bona fide spiritual master and being connected to that spiritual master. These inquiries that we just spoke about, these are the inquiries that we should place before the spiritual master. Tadvidi pranipratena paripakshena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshana. We should render service to the spiritual master and the spiritual master's mission asking, how can I serve you? This should be this should be one of our questions. But we should also inquire about our confusions, about the inquiries that we have about life. The spiritual master, because he is connected intimately with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who knows the scriptures and the meaning of the scriptures, can reveal the scriptures in a practical way to us. So Tapa, you were asking before that about, some people say at the end of life, everything ends. Other people say that, based on our karma, we go, to different places. Some of it's confusing and we really don't know. This is very important in life. We have to come to a conviction. We should not leave this world not knowing, or else at the time of death, we will be in fear. We want to be united with Krishna. And therefore, we have to approach a bona fide spiritual master. Now, there is the Bhagavat, referenced in this paragraph. There are two types of Bhagavats, the book Bhagavat and the person Bhagavat. And they are equal manifestations of the same principle. And they manifest differently out of Krishna's compassion, so that he is available in as many ways as possible for us, the conditioned souls of this world. The book Bhagavat, the Srimad Bhagavatam, speaks about the pastimes and glorifies the pure devotee, the person Bhagavat. The pastimes of the Supreme Lord and his devotees. And what is the person Bhagavat doing? He's speaking about the book Bhagavat and how we can get direction from the book Bhagavat. So they are referring to one another, ultimately connecting us to the Supreme Lord. But these are the questions we should ask the spiritual master. These most important questions about the purpose and goal of life and how it can be attained and how I can utilize my life in that ultimate service. And that spiritual master has to be connected in the chain of disciplic succession, the parampara, from leading all the way back to Brahmaji, as he received it from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We are in the good fortune of being connected to such a line of disciplic succession. The Gauriya Brahma Madhva Gauriya Sampradaya. Any questions or thoughts before we move on? I can't see the hands, so if you do have a question, just because I'm sharing the screen, just blurt it out. Okay, let's move on. Would anybody like to read? I've been reading and talking. I want to break it up a little bit because we have a lot to go.
I can read probably little.
Okay, you can read this paragraph, Mataji.
Okay, thank you very much. The revealed scriptures give directions directly to this end. But because the bewildered living entities are blinded by the glaring reflection in the darkness, they are unable to find the truth of the revealed scriptures. For example, in the Bhagavad Gita, the whole direction is targeted toward the personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, but for want of a bona fide spiritual master in the line of Brahmaji or the direct hearer, Arjuna, There are different distortions of the revealed knowledge by many unauthorized persons who just want to satisfy their own whims. Undoubtedly, the Bhagavad Gita is accepted as one of the most brilliant stars in the horizon of the spiritual sky. Yet the interpretations of this great book of knowledge have so grossly been distorted that every student of the Bhagavad Gita is still in the same darkness of glaring material reflections. Such students are hardly enlightened by the Bhagavad Gita. In the Gita, practically the same instruction is imparted as in the four prime verses of the Bhagavatam. But due to wrong and fashionable interpretations by unauthorized persons, one cannot reach the ultimate conclusion. In the Bhagavad Gita 18.61, it is clearly stated, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hrid Deshe Arjun Tishtati Brahman Sarva Bhutani Yantra Rudhani Mayaya. The Lord is situated in the heart of all living beings as Paramatma, and He is controlling all of them in the material world under the agency of His external energy. Therefore, it is clearly mentioned that the Lord is the supreme controller and that the living entities are controlled by the Lord. In the same Bhagavad Gita 18.65, the Lord directs as follows. Manmana bhav mad bhakto mad yaji mam namaskuru mam evashyasi satyam te prati jane priyo asime. It is clear from this verse of the Bhagavad Gita that the direction of the Lord is that one should be God-minded, a devotee of the Lord, a worshipper of the Lord, and must offer all obeisances unto Lord Krishna. By so doing, the devotee will undoubtedly go back to Godhead, back to home. Thank you for
Thank you for reading that. Very nice. Any questions or comments on this paragraph we just read? I'll just make one point here. It makes me think of this verse, Om Agyana Timbarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Umilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master has opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. That it was speaking that we are always in the glaring darkness, or the darkness of ignorance. And even though the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam was presented by the Lord himself, and the Lord's devotees, still, because of the principle of the resistance of surrendering, we remain in darkness because we come up with our own interpretations, and we don't understand the purpose of the scriptures. That is the importance of having direction under a bona fide spiritual master. If we leave it to ourselves, to navigate spiritual life, we will be misled. We are blind, so we need somebody who can see to guide us out and uncover our eyes. But if we remain in darkness, and even if we say, well, I know Bhagavad Gita, I've read the verses, but yet we haven't come to the conclusion of surrendering to Krishna, which is the end of the Bhagavad Gita. Mamana bhava mad bhakto mam yaji mam namaskuru mami vaishasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. Sarva dharmam pratyajam mamekam sharanam vraja ham tvam sarva papavyo mokshaya shami masuchaha. If we've not come to this conclusion, and that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then we're still remaining in the darkness. And Krishna's purpose for delivering the Bhagavad Gita has not been fulfilled. Okay. Would anybody else like to read?
Yes, Prabhu, may I read?
Is Mother Sitapa? Indirectly, it is said.
Yes. Indirectly, it is said that the whole Vedic social construction of human society is so made that everyone acts as a part and parcel of the complete body of the Lord. The intelligent class of men, or the Brahmanas, are situated on the face of the Lord. The administrative class of men, the Kshatriyas, are situated on the arms of the Lord. The productive class of men, the Vaishyas, are situated on the belt of the Lord. And the laborer class of men, the Shudras, are situated on the legs of the Lord. Therefore, the complete social construction is the body of the Lord, and all the parts of the body, namely the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and the Shudras, are meant to serve the Lord's whole body conjointly. Otherwise, the parts become unfit to be coordinated with the supreme consciousness of oneness. Universal consciousness is factually achieved by coordinated service of all concerned to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that alone can ensure total perfection. Therefore, even the great scientists, the great philosophers, the great mental speculators, the great politicians, the great industrialists, the great social reformers, etc., cannot give any relief to the restless society of the material world because they do not know the secret of success as mentioned in this verse of the Bhagavatam, namely that one must know the mystery of the Bhakti Yoga in the Bhagavad Gita 7.15. Also it is said, Namam dushkritona modaha prapirdante naradhamaha maya ya parahrita jnana ashuram bhavam ashritaha. Because that so-called great leaders of human society are ignorant of this great knowledge of Bhakti Yoga and are always engaged in ignoble acts of sense gratification, bewildered by the external energy of the Lord, they are stubborn rebels against the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they never agree to surrender into Him because they are fools, miscreants, and the lowest type of human beings. Such faithless non believers may be highly educated in the material sense of the term, but factually they are the greatest fools of the world because by the influence of the external material nature, all their so-called acquisitions of knowledge has been made null and void. Therefore, all advancement of knowledge in the present context of things is being misused by cats and dogs fighting with one another for sense gratification, and all acquisition of knowledge in science, philosophy, fine arts, nationalism, economic development, religion, and great activities are being spoiled by being used as dresses for men. There is no utility in the dresses used for covering a coffin of a dead body, save getting false applause from the ignorant public. The Srimad Bhagavatam therefore says again and again that without attainment of the status of Bhakti Yoga, all the activities of human society are to be considered absolute failures only. It is said, Parabhavastavat abhudajato yavan najikshata atmatattvam yavat kriyastavad idam manove karmatmakam yana sharira bandhaha. Bhagavatam 5.5.5. As long as one is blind, sorry, Prabhu, should I stop?
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
let's just pause right here and see if there's any, just so we can break it break it up. Any points or questions that anybody has about this paragraph that we just read? It started off by speaking about how the social structure that was created by Krishna is perfect and is like a body. And when we read about when we read about the universal form of the Lord back in the first chapter of this canto, everything was perfect in this universal body of the Lord. And one of the ways the universal form of the Lord is presented is in the social structure, where the face or the head is the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas are the arms, the Vaishyas are the waist, the body, and then the legs are the Sudras. And when all these components are working perfectly together, actually the universe is in harmony or in order. To know this, one actually has to understand the Lord's plan. And then we get into just Srila Prabhupada continuing to explain the importance of understanding the principles of Bhakti Yoga, or else our life is misguided. We get consumed with science, philosophy, arts, nationalism, economic development, even religion. But we see it all through the guise of being a material body, with a goal being sense gratification. How can I live happy and more comfortable here in this world? Knowing that the general mass of public is misled in this way, this should ignite a feeling of compassion for them. And this compassion is the basis of a preaching movement. It's not about getting numbers. It's not about, scores or anything like that. It's about people are suffering due to the misidentification of who they actually are. We have to have that, and as soon as we come to that understanding, through the grace of the spiritual master, by the illumination of the Srimad Bhagavatam in our lives, we should feel compelled to want to share this knowledge with others, so that they can be freed from the ignorance that the material world has put them under. Okay, let's continue. Would anybody else like to read? Okay, I'll read this next one, and then we can go back again. As long as one is blind to inquiring after self-realization, all material activities, however great they may be, are all different kinds of defeat, because the aim of the human life is not fulfilled by such unwanted and profitless activities. The function of the human body is to attain freedom from material bondage, but as long as one is fully absorbed in material activities, his mind will be overwhelmed with the whirlpool of matter, and thus he will continue to be encaged in the material bodies life after life. Evam mana karma vasam prayan ukte avidyayat manya upadhiyamane Pratirnayavan mai vasudeve namuchate deha yogena tatvat. It is one's mind that generates different kinds of bodies for suffering, different kinds of material pangs. Therefore, as long as the mind is absorbed in the fruit of activities, the mind is understood to be absorbed in nescience. And thus, one is sure to be subjected to the material bondage in different bodies again and again until one develops transcendental love for Godhead, Vasudeva, the Supreme Person. To become absorbed in the transcendental name, quality, form, and activities of the Supreme Person, Vasudeva, means to change the temper of the mind from matter to absolute knowledge, which leads one to the path of absolute realization, and thus frees one from the bondage of material contact and engagements in the different material bodies. Now we have come to the point of the mind. Now, it's explained here, the mind has become overwhelmed in the whirlpool of matter. A whirlpool is just constantly spinning, and it sucks you down. If you get caught in a whirlpool, it's like if you look at, like when water's going through a pipe, or when you flush a toilet, it spins, and then sucks down. And we keep getting sucked down because the mind is continuing to spin. And as it spins, it keeps taking on more and more absorption in material situations. And it pulls the living entity down into the identification of their material body and their material situation in life. And this creates different sufferings. It's all happening on the platform of the mind. Therefore, Krishna says, one who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. One whose mind has conquered them, the mind is the worst of enemies. The mind will mislead us. So many scenarios. The mind is thinking, well, this person is thinking this, so therefore I shouldn't ask. Oh, this is happening. Most of the time it's very bad things. Sometimes it's good things the mind is presenting. Sometimes it presents false hopes. Sometimes the mind is presenting situations that actually don't exist. And they're not even happening in reality. They're all happening within within the mind. How many times have we been in situations where we think that a person is feeling a certain way, and actually they're not? And it's all been manufactured within the mind. And because of that, we've drawn conclusions about people that it hasn't even been true. But the mind leads us down this path. And once you start going down the path, the mind, even though it's limited in physically within, between our ears, which is not a very big space, but actually it has no end to it. It can go on for days and days and days, leading you down a path of scenarios, not based on knowledge, but based on our fears and our material desires. So therefore, to conquer the mind is essential. The way we conquer the mind is through the mantra. Mantra means to deliver the mind. The Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is so important. And it's so important to chant this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra continuously, every day. And while we're chanting, we should engage the mind in chanting as well. Not just the tongue, not just the ears, but we should engage the mind in chanting. The mind, you're going to chant as well. You're going to take this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and you will be delivered. If it is just our tongue chanting, it'll take a very, very long time to wear away at the mind. But if we can convince the mind that this is for your benefit. You sit down, and the mind is going to want to tell you so many different things. Cooking breakfast, there's things to do today. You have to make these phone calls, to set up these appointments, send these messages, wear these clothes, what happened yesterday, what potentially could happen later. The mind is going to want to tell you all these things, and you have to preach to the mind. Now it is your time to meet Krishna. Now it is your time to be peaceful. And the mind will tell you, I don't want to be peaceful. Who has time for peace? You have to plan. You have to reflect. But you have to continually work at it. So this chanting is simple, but it is also very complex because it has to deal with the complex mind. And we have to be fighters. And we have to fight to engage the mind in chanting. And when we can conquer that mind, we will find ultimate peace. The person who has the undisturbed mind, as Bhagavad Gita explains, a lamp in a windless place. It's not blowing here and there. It is steady, one-pointed. At that point, the super soul is reached, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. So, I wanted to mention that point here about the mind, a very important part of this purport. Okay, let us continue. Any questions or thoughts on that? If not, we will continue. We're going to take it up to 9 o'clock today, because it's, we said, a very long purport. We'll get through as much as we can. Mother Shuman, would you like to read?
I can read, Prabhuji.
Nishinga Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna.
You want
Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada therefore comments on the words Sarvatra Sarvada in the sense that the principles of Bhakti Yoga or devotional service to the Lord are apt in all circumstances. That is, Bhakti Yoga is recommended in all the revealed scriptures. It is performed by all authorities. It is important in all places. It is useful in all causes and effects, etc. As far as all the revealed scriptures are concerned, he quotes from Skanda Purana on the topics of Brahma and Narada as follows. Samsare asmin mahaghore janma mrityu samakule pujanam vasudevasya tarakam bhadivihi smartram. In the material world, which is full of darkness and dangers, combined with birth and death, and full of different anxieties, the only way to get out of the great entanglement is to accept loving transcendental devotional service to the Lord Vasudeva. This is accepted by all classes of philosophers. Srila Jiva Goswami also quotes another common passage which is found in 3 Puranas, namely Padma Purana, Skanda Purana, and Linga Purana. It runs as follows. Alodaya sarvo shastrani vicharaya cha punah punah idam ekam suni pananam dehaya narayana shada. By scrutinizing, reviewing all the revealed scriptures and judging them again and again, it is now concluded that Lord Narayana is the supreme absolute truth, and thus he alone should be worshipped. The same truth is also indirectly described in the Gorula Purana as follows. Param gato pi vedanam sarva shastrartha vede api yo no sarveshara sarvashvare bhaktas tam vidyayat purushadhanam. Even though one may have gone to other side of the Vedas, and even though one is well versed in all the revealed scripture, if one is not a devotee of the Supreme Lord, he must be considered as the lowest of the mankind. Similarly, it is also stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 5.18.12 indirectly as follows. यस्य भक्ति भगवती अकिंचन सर्वैर्गुणैस्तत्र समासते शूरः हरव हरव अभक्त अभक्तशयषा कुतो महत् गुणो मनो रथेन शति देवातो बाहि. One who has unflinching devotion to unto Supreme Personality of Godhead must have all good qualities of the demigods, and contrarily, one who is not a devotee of the Lord must be hovering in the darkness of mental speculation, and thus must be engaged in material impermanency. Srimad Bhagavatam
We'll pause. We'll,
11.11.
we'll pause here, Prabhu, and see if there's any just to break it up a little bit. Um, any thoughts or questions on what we just read? Um, anything? If not, we'll continue to.
And Hare Krishna, I think it says that if we know about the scriptures, but if we do not have bhakti, then it is not good. We have to, that the ultimate goal is bhakti after knowing the scriptures.
So how is it possible? This is very good. Thank you for bringing that out, Mother Shuman. Let's take that a step further. How is it possible that one could know the scriptures but not attain bhakti? How do you think that could be?
I think we, with the scriptures, we go in mode of goodness.
Mm-hmm.
And we are like, our activities are pious activities, but we have to do it in relation to Krishna. That is bhakti.
Yes. Knowing that the purpose of the scriptures is to develop devotion to God. If we see the purpose of the scriptures just to live a happy and comfortable life, and therefore to pray to God, or sometimes we take the scriptures to understand suffering, and then we place it on others. Like, okay, this is why things are happening. Now I understand how the material world works. And that gives a sense of pride, because knowledge breeds pride. If one has a lot of knowledge, then one actually feels very powerful. They can quote scriptures, they can recite scriptures, they can tell you, they can talk for hours and hours and hours about what they think and what they've understood. But they've actually not developed the mood of a servant of God. And that is the conclusion one will come to if they've properly understood what the scriptures are saying. Very nice.
Very nice.
Would you like to continue, Mother Shuman?
Okay, thank you, Baby.
Shrimad.
Srimad Bhagavatam, from here, Srimad Bhagavatam 11.11.18 says, Shabda Brahmani Nishnato Na Nishnayat Pare Yadi Shramas Tasya Shram Phalo Hi Adhenam Eva Rakshataha. One may be well versed in all the transcendental literature of the Vedas, but if he fails to be, disappeared. If he fails to be acquainted with the Supreme, then it must be concluded that all of his education is like the burden of a beast, or like one's keeping a cow without milking capacity. Similarly, the liberty of discharging loving transcendental service to the Lord is invested in everyone, even the women, the Shudras, the forest tribes, or any other living beings born in sinful conditions. Devai vidantya ati taranti cha dev mayam स्त्री शूद्र ऊन शबार अपि पाप जीवः यद्य अद्भुत क्रम प्रायण शीलक्षास शीलक्षित sorry तिर्यग जाना अपि किमु श्रुत धारणा ये भागवतम 2.7.46. The lowest of human beings can be elevated to the highest stage of devotional life if they are trained by the bona fide spiritual master, well versed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. If the lowest can be so elevated, then what to speak of the highest, who are well versed in the Vedic knowledge? The conclusion is that devotional service to the Lord is open for all, regardless of who they are. That is the confirmation of its application for all kinds of performers of the service.
This is a very important point. And this is something that we should be fixed in our consciousness, that there is no living being who is not it does not have the ability to be elevated to the highest stage of devotional life. You know, Lord Chaitanya delivered Jagai and Madai to prove this point. You know, the drunkard, the abuser, the poor, the uneducated. We should be very careful to put material designations on people as it refers to the Lord's mercy being able to deliver them. And therefore, in our service, we should look in terms of this. And sometimes due to our conditioning previous to coming into Krishna consciousness, sometimes we can bring that material conditioning into Krishna consciousness. And we think that, oh, this person is so low in life. They're such a lost cause that, you know, they're not worth preaching to, or at least saying a prayer for. That maybe I don't know how to give the Lord's mercy to this person, but Lord, you certainly know how to give the Lord's mercy to such a person. So please give me the intelligence to be able to speak to this person. We should never think that the Lord's mercy has any limitations beyond what material designations people have. So this is an important conclusion we should be convinced of. Any doubts that anyone has about that? Okay, let's Mother Sutta, are you still there, Mother Sutapa? You have the ability to
Yes, Prabhu.
keep going.
Therefore, the devotionals are to hold on a second. Just I need to remove. I don't know. Therefore, the devotional service of the Lord with perfect knowledge through the training of a bona fide spiritual master is advised for everyone, even if one happens not to be a human being. This is confirmed in the Garuda Purana as follows. Kita Pakshi Mriganam cha harau shannashta chetasham urdhvam eva gatim manya kim punar yananenam nrinam. Even the worms, birds, and beasts are assured of elevation to the highest perfection of life if they are completely surrendered to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So, what to speak of the philosophers amongst the human beings? This is very good proof.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a verse. This is a new
Yes.
verse for us to stretch our minds to understand the unlimited capacity of the Lord's mercy, and also our limited capacity to understanding that the Lord's mercy has to be in this form. We
Yes.
don't know the Lord is unlimited, so the Lord's mercy is also unlimited. We tend to think, well, it has to fit into this form or this vessel. It has to be within these terms. Well, it has to be within, one's mind has to be developed in this way in order to understand. I mean, typically we hear that when one comes to the platform of human life, one can then inquire about the Supreme. But is it possible that animal life can achieve the highest perfection of life and surrender to the loving service of the Lord and achieve the Lord's mercy? We see situations like the dog that was delivered by Lord Chaitanya, who was a companion of the devotees when they traveled in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. And some people just dismissed the dog, and Lord Chaitanya took compassion upon the dog and gave it liberation. Went back to Godhead. When Lord Chaitanya went through the Jarakhanda forest, by his being able to see this Samadarshana, all living beings, everybody suffering according to their, situations that they've acquired due to their karma. And he connected with them on the spiritual platform. And it transcended any material consciousness that they had. The beasts were dancing with Lord Chaitanya, chanting the holy names. In his famous lecture, in his famous speech about on chanting Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada says that even a child can take part in this chanting, even a dog can take part in this chanting. So this should stretch our understanding of the Lord's unlimited, causeless mercy.
Therefore, there is no need to speak properly qualified candidates for discharging devotional service to the Lord. Let them be either well behaved or ill trained. Let them be either learned or fools. Let them be either grossly attached or in the renounced order of life. Let them be liberated souls or desirous of salvation. Let them be expert in the discharge of devotional service or expert in the same. All of them can be elevated to the supreme position by discharging devotional service under the proper guidance. And this is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9.30 to 32 as follows. Api chitshu duracharo bhajati mam ananyavak sadhureva shamannadvya shamyagvyavashito hi shaha mam hi partha vyashpratya yepi shuha papayanoyaha striyo vashyas tatha shudras tepi yanti param gatim. I'll continue, Prabhu.
Yeah, let's do this.
Okay.
Actually, let's pause right here for a second. We're past 9 o'clock, and we don't like to go further past it because uh, but I want to. Srila Prabhupada wrote this purport, and it's very long. If anybody would like to stay on, I don't want people to feel like they have to. They have to get to work or they have other appointments. Don't feel bad about dropping off. But I'll stay on. I have some time. I want to read through this with the devotees. If anybody would like to stay. Again, please don't feel like you have to. You're not doing anything wrong if you have to drop off. But if you do have time and would like to continue to finish this purport, we can continue to read. Does that sound okay? Again, please don't feel
Yes, Abhi.
if you've reached your point and have to go. I completely understand. Most days I have to drop off for work, but today I don't have any meetings until later, so I'm available. Okay, let's continue, and then we'll keep, for those that stay on and want to read, we'll continue switching off after every paragraph.
Even if a person is fully addicted to all sorts of sinful acts, if he happens to be engaged in the loving transcendental service of the Lord, under proper guidance, he is to be considered the most perfect holy man, without a doubt. And thus, any person whatsoever or whosoever he or she may be, even the fallen woman, the less intelligent laborer, the dull mercantile man, or even a man lower than all these, can attain the highest perfection of life by going back home, back to Godhead, provided he or she takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord in all earnestness. This sincere earnestness is the only qualification that can lead one to the highest perfection stage of life, and unless and until such real earnestness is aroused, there is a difference between cleanliness or uncleanliness, learning or non learning in the material estimation. Fire is always fire, and thus, if someone touches the fire knowingly or unknowingly, the fire will act in its own way without discrimination. The principle is Harir Harati Papani Dushta Chitta Rapismitaha. The all powerful Lord can purify the devotee of all sinful reactions, just as the sun can sterilize all sorts of infections by its powerful rays. Attraction for material enjoyment cannot act upon a pure devotee of the Lord. There are hundreds and hundreds of aphorisms in the revealed scriptures. Atmaramascha munnayaha. Even the self-realized souls are also attracted by the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Kechit kevalaya vaktaya vasudeva parayanaha. Simply by hearing and chanting, one becomes a great devotee of Lord Vasudeva. Na chalati bhagavat padaravindal lavani mini shardham apisha vaishnava bhakriyaha. A person who does not move from the lotus feet of the Lord, even for a moment or a second, is to be considered the greatest of all Vaishnavas. Bhagavat prasadantam prapate matsevaya pratite tamte. The pure devotees are convinced of attaining the association of the personality of Godhead, and thus they are always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Therefore, in all continents, in all planets, in all universes, devotional service to the Lord or Bhakti Yoga is current. And that is the statement of the Srimad Bhagavatam and allied scriptures. Everywhere means in every part of the creation of the Lord. The Lord can be sought by all the senses or even simply by the mind. The South Indian Brahmana who served the Lord simply on the strength of his mind also factually realized the Lord. Success is guaranteed for a devotee who fully engages any of his senses in the mode of devotional service. The Lord can be served by any ingredient, even the most common commodity, a flower, a leaf, a fruit, or a little water, which are available in any part of the universe and without cost. And thus the Lord is served universally by the universal entity. He can be served simply by hearing. He can be served simply by chanting or reading about his activities. He can be served simply by adoring him and accepting him.
Mm. Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Prabhu, I need to leave.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mother Sita, for participating today. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions on this that we've just read? It is very laid out very beautifully by Srila Prabhupada. I just want to see if there's any doubts or questions.
Yeah, again, is there only by hearing and chanting one can and render devotional service to the Lord and attain Krishna Vasudeva. So the essence of all everything that we read, we hear, you know, that's the only way we can attain Krishna by hearing and chanting.
Very nice. I like the point that from the beginning that was quoted as apichet suraracharo bhajate mam ananya bhak, that even if a person has difficulty in executing devotional service, their eagerness to render service to the Lord is their qualification. Earnestness, that's what the word Srila Prabhupada says, the earnestness to go back home, back to Godhead. That in this material world, there's always going to be some difficulty that a person has, and it may result in a fall down from the path of devotional life. One may get distracted or pulled away. But if one maintains an earnestness, the Lord never gives up on him, on this the devotee, and tells us that they actually should be considered to be rightly situated if they return to their platform of devotional life, and also that we should never feel limited in our devotional life. Sometimes we feel like, well, I don't have this, so I can't do it. I don't have a car, so I can't go here. I don't have this, I can't do that. I don't have a lot of money. And Prabhupada gives the example of the South Indian Brahmin who was able to serve Manaseva, by offering sweet rice, within his mind to the Lord, and make it very opulent. And then he says, even if you have, quoting Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, if one has a leaf, flower, fruit, or water, Krishna, that is what Krishna sees, is our earnestness, our desire to serve him. So there are no material limitations that we can place on devotional life. Hearing and chanting can be done by everybody. Okay. Let's continue. Nishinga Prabhu, would you like to
Yes, Lord.
continue to read?
In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that one can serve the Lord by offering the result of one's work, one's own work. It does not matter what one does. Generally, men may say that whatever they are doing is inspired by God, but that is not all. One should actually work on behalf of God as a servant of God. The Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita 9.27, Yat karoshi yat asnasi yat juhusi dadasi yat tat tapasyashi kaunteya tat kurusha mat arpanam arpanam. By whatever you like or whatever may be easier for you to do, eat whatever you may eat, sacrifice whatever you can sacrifice, give whatever you may give in charity, and do whatever you may undertake in penance. But everything must be done for Him only. If you do business, or if you accept some employment, or or do so on behalf of the Lord, whatever you may eat, you may offer the same to the Lord and be assured that He will return the food after eating it Himself. He is complete whole, and therefore whatever He may eat as offered by the devotees is accepted because of the devotee's love. But again, it is returned as prasada for the devotee so that he can be happy by eating. In other words, be a servant of God and live peacefully in that consciousness, ultimately returning home back to Godhead. It is said in Skanda Purana, Yasha Smritaya Nano Namo Kataya Tato Yagna Kriya Kriyadishu Nunam Sampurnartham Natam Sampurnatam iti Sadyo Vande Tam Achyutam. I offer my obeisances unto him, the infallible, because simply by either remembering him or vibrating his holy name, one can attain the perfection of all penances, sacrifice, or fruitive activities. And this process can be universally followed. It is enjoined Bhagavad Gita 2, Bhagavatam 2.3.10. Akama sarvokamo va mokshokama udarita tibrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Though a person they, though a person be full of desires or have no desires, he may follow this path of infallible bhakti yoga for complete perfection. One need not be anxious to propitiate each and every demigod and goddess because the root of all of them is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As by pouring water on the root of the tree, one serves and enlivens all the branches and leaves. So by rendering service unto Supreme Lord, one automatically serves every god and goddess without extraneous effort. The uh, Lord is all pervading and therefore service to unto Him is also all pervading. This fact is corroborated in Skanda Purana as follows: Ar- Archite Devesha Shankha Chakra Gada Dhara Archite Sarvo Deva Shura Yataha Sarvo Gato Hari.
We'll
When
pause right here. We'll pause there. Um, any thoughts or comments or questions on what we've just read? By anyone? If not, we'll continue to read.
when the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, who carries in his hands of conch shell, wheel, club, and lotus flower, is worshipped, certainly all other demigods are worshipped automatically, because Hari, the personality of Godhead, is all pervading. Therefore, in all cases, namely nominative, objective, causative, dative, ablative, possessive, and supportive, everyone is benefited by such transcendental loving service to the Lord. The man who worships the Lord Himself, who is worshipped, the cause of which the Lord is worshipped, the source of supply, the place where such worship is done, etc. Everything is benefited by such an action. Even during
We'll pause right there and well, let's somebody else continue to read. Um, Mother Shuman, would you like to pick up?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Even during the annihilation of the material world, the process of bhakti yoga can be applied. Kaler nashta pralaya vaniyam. The Lord is worshipped in devastation because he protects the Vedas from being annihilated. He is worshipped in every millennium or yuga, as it is said in Srimad Bhagavatam 12.3.52, Kirtiye yad dhyayato Vishnu Tretayam yajato mukhaha Dwapare paricharyayam kalau tad dari kirtanat. In the Vishnu Puran, it is written, Sa anistan mahach chidram sa moha sa cha vibhramaha yan muhurtam shana vapi vasudevam na chintayet. Even for a moment, remembrance of Vasudev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is missed. That is the greatest loss. That is the greatest illusion. And that is the greatest anomaly. The Lord can be worshipped in all stages of life. For instance, even in the wombs of their mothers, Maharaj Prahlad and Maharaj Parikshit worshipped the Lord. Even in his very childhood, at the age of only 5 years, Dhruva Maharaj worshipped the Lord. Oh, 1 second. Even in full youth, Maharaj Ambrish worshipped the Lord. And even at the last stage of his frustration and old age, Maharaj Dhritarashtra worshipped the Lord. Ajamila worshipped the Lord even at the point of death. And Chitraketu worshipped the Lord even in heaven and in hell. In the Nrsimha Puran, it is said that as the hellish inhabitants began to chant the holy name of the Lord, they began to be elevated from hell towards heaven. Durvasa Muni has also supported this view. Muchyate yan namnya udite narko api. Simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, the inhabitants of hell became released from their hellish persecution. So the conclusion of Srimad Bhagavatam, as given by Shukdev Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit, is Etan nirvidya mananam ichhatam akuto bhayam yoginam nirnitam harer namano kirtanam. O king, it is finally decided that everyone, namely those in the renounced order of life, the mystics, and the enjoyers of fruitive work, should chant the holy name of the Lord fearlessly to achieve the desired success in their pursuits. Bhagavatam 2.1.11.
Thank you.
Very nice verse.
Very nice. I'll continue to read. Similarly, as indicated indirectly in various places in revealed scriptures. 1. Even though one is well versed in the Vedas and scriptures, if one is not a devotee of the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, he is considered to be lowest of mankind. In the Garuda Purana, Briha Naradiya Purana, and Padma Purana, the same is repeated. What is the use of Vedic knowledge and penances for one who is devoid of devotional service of the Lord? 3. What is the comparison of thousands of Prajapatis to one devotee of the Lord? These are very good questions to meditate upon. Sukadev Goswami said, Bhagavatam 2:417, that neither the ascetic, nor one who is greatly munificent, nor one who is famous, nor the great philosopher, nor the great occultist, nor anyone else who can achieve desired results without being engaged in the service of the Lord. 5. Even if a place is more glorious than heaven, if there is no glorification of the Lord of Vaikuntha or his pure devotee, it should at once be quitted. 6. The pure devotee refuses to accept all the 5 different types of liberation in order to be engaged in the service of the Lord. The final conclusion, therefore, is that the glories of the Lord must be always and everywhere proclaimed. One should hear, so this is the finale here, for those that have made it through this purport. We have to pay close attention in the final conclusion. The final conclusion, therefore, is that the glories of the Lord must be always and everywhere proclaimed. One should hear about his glories, and one should chant about his glories, and one should always remember his glories, because that is the highest perfectional stage of life. As far as fruitive work is concerned, it is limited to an enjoyable body. As far as yoga is concerned, it is limited to the acquirement of mystic power. As far as empiric philosophy is concerned, it is limited to the attainment of transcendental knowledge. And as far as transcendental knowledge is concerned, it is limited to the attainment of salvation. Even if they are adopted, there is every chance of discrepancies in discharging the particular type of functions. But adoption of the transcendental devotional service of the Lord has no limit, nor is there fear of falling down. The process automatically reaches the final stage by the grace of the Lord. In the preliminary stage of devotional service, there is an apparent requisite for knowledge. But in the higher stage, there is no necessity of such knowledge. The best and guaranteed path of progress is therefore engagement in bhakti yoga, pure devotional service. Jai. Sringer Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
You want to continue to read?
Sure,
Cream?
sure. The cream of Srimad Bhagavatam in the foregoing 4 slokas is sometimes squeezed out by the impersonalists for different interpretations in their favor. But it should be carefully noted that the 4 slokas were first described by personality of Godhead himself, and thus the impersonalist has no scope to enter into them because he has no conception of the personality of Godhead. Therefore, the impersonalist may squeeze out any interpretations of from them, such but such interpretations will never be accepted by those who are taught in the disciplic succession from Brahma, as will be cleared up in the following verses. verses. Besides that, the Shruti confirms that the supreme truth, absolute personality of Godhead, never reveals himself to anyone who is falsely proud of his academic knowledge. The Shruti Mantra clearly says, Katha Upanishad 1.2.23, Nayam Nayam Atma Prabha Labho na medhayaya na buhudha shrutena yam ivaisha vrunete tena labhayas tasyasya ya atma dhivrunete tanunam shayam. The whole matter is explained by the Lord himself, and one who has no approach to the Lord is in his personal feature can rarely understand the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam without being taught by the Bhagavatas in the disciplic succession. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada poured so
Jai.
much of his realization into
Yeah.
this purport. I mean, we can go back and read this purport, sections of this purport. They're just so fully enriched with the spirit of his compassion and transcendental knowledge. I want to thank everybody for staying on and performing a little austerity on your behalf and sacrificing some of your time this morning to read through all this whole purport. Certainly it was important because Srila Prabhupada took the time to write about it. I understand those that couldn't stay on past our time break off. But for those that did stay on, I want to thank you. And for reading, asking questions and presenting some of your realizations about this. If there's anything anybody would like to say, we can do so now, and if not, we will conclude.
Thank you, Guruji. Very nice class, and you explained everything very nicely. I like the point of mind also, like mind. We have to preach our mind, otherwise we will get the body according to our mind. We have to reach to do the devotional service and clean up. Very, very nice. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay.
Like you say, we have to read that again to, a lot of content, a lot of nice instruction for us in this purport.
Yeah, I mean, it was really full. I mean, each one of those paragraphs could have been a class itself. You could have taken each one of these paragraphs and just dissected it and spoken about it for, a long period of time. When we get off the mental platform and you say, well, what do devotees do? This is it. Machita makata prana bodhayantas parasparam. Kathayantas chamam nityam tushanti cha brahmanti cha. The thoughts of my pure devotees, they dwell in me, and their lives are dedicated to my service, hearing and discussing with one another and conversing about me. This is where, our attraction, our fulfillment should be, in discussing this. So, yeah, please go back and read through it. If anybody wants to discuss it and they're looking for somebody to discuss it with, feel free to reach out to me, give me a call, talk about it. I love speaking about Srimad Bhagavatam with devotees, your realizations, your questions. Call up a friend and say, hey, let's read through this purport and discuss this. Thank you, Mother Golokananda Priya, for bringing that up. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. We have a program this evening. His Holiness Chandramali Maharaj is in town, and he will be speaking tonight at the temple, and he'll also be doing kirtan. His kirtans are are very enthusiastic. So this will begin at 6:30 tonight. So please, if you can, make it to the temple and get the association of a saintly devotee. Hare Krishna.